Hi guys, welcome to the very first GB Pageantry HQ podcast, and I'm super excited to have the wonderful reigning Ms. Great Britain, Charlotte Clemie, on as our very first one. So season one, episode one. Whether we'll continue the season one episode thing, we'll see. We'll see how we go. It's just giving me the out that if I want to have a break, that we can get to the end of season one, and then we can
Yeah.
park it, or we can kind of carry on. So let's get going. How are you?
I'm thrilled. I'm so glad to be on season one, episode one. I feel very special.
Do you feel very special?
Yeah, I do.
Uh,
I'm excited for this. And I think, it's such a good idea. And yes, I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of it.
Ace, I want to keep it really real. So I just want you to tell people, like 10 minutes before we were about to actually start, and I told you that there's a possibility this could go on YouTube. What was the response?
Well, I was panicking because I'm editing today from home and one of these people. I think a lot of pageant girls can relate. I'm either completely glammed up with a crown on my head at 36 years old, or I actually look like like horrendous. I just look like no makeup, straight back hair in just real rubbishy clothes. There's no middle for me. I'm either like one extreme or the other. So whenever I text saying it's not going to be on video, was it? Is it? And you said yes on Zoom. I thought, oh Jesus Christ, okay. So I had 10 minutes to put makeup on, but this is what's great about the crown because it's all hidden back here. You can see what's going on with his hair.
You can just sort of scrape it behind, just touch it, and as long as I just stay facing forward, I'm all right. I can totally relate to obviously living with a former Miss Great Britain and obviously national director of Miss Great Britain, Saffron Hart. So I just know that she's not either here or there. It's either everything from the neck up is always done from the neck down.
It is always done.
But from the neck down, it could be half like really nice top and then pajama bottoms, depending on what she's doing like that day. So if she just needs to be seen from the waist up, then yeah, it's that or it's dressing gown. So yeah, can completely
Laugh about Saffron. So I feel like me and Saffron really bonded when we went to London to Kent for our Barbie party with the Queens, and it was the day after. We were slightly hungover, and we had a long drive ahead of us that Saf was driving. So she was driving, so it was even worse for her. And I think I sort of came up after breakfast, and there she was, put on a full face of makeup. I was like, Saf, what are you doing? And she was like, oh, it was her makeup. And I was like, do you know what? Got to clap her up. I was like, I could just imagine her every day just looking like perfect every day, whereas I was literally in the car looking like death, warmed up.
but for me as a guy, obviously being her other half, like it's incredible. She can be ready in if I give her like 15 minutes, because like obviously we travel a lot with my business and all that kind of stuff, and we often have really short changes between maybe being at an event and then being at a dinner in the evening or what have you. And honestly, I've never seen anything like it. She it's like Wonder Woman. She'll be done if she's got 20 minutes, she'll be done in 20 minutes, good to go, ready to go, no complaints, no nothing, which is just fantastic. And I just don't know how she does it. I don't know how any.
But then it's one of them. I'm like that. So I've got literally gone from looking shocking to looking okay now. But then if you give me an hour, I would have looked the same. I could
You'll
literally get
fill the hour. Yeah.
I'll fill it.
I think is that Parkinson's law where time expands to the amount that you give it or something along those lines.
Weird.
That's me geeking out. Right, come on, tell me about Charlotte Clemie and how she got to be Ms. Great Britain for 2023. Give me the run up, because you touched on the Barbie thing, which I'm going to go in a little bit deeper in a second. But fantastic photographer, probably one of the most chosen pageant photographers in the pageant world. Tell me about how you ended up where you are now.
So for me, I think from the beginning, I'm from Northern Ireland, so my accent kind of comes and goes because I've lived in England 18 years. So I think when we jumped on the call, you're like, you sounded really Yorkshire there. So my accent's a little bit blurred now. I haven't lived in England for so long, but I grew up in Northern Ireland, and from literally from 17 is when I became obsessed with pageants, probably even before that, really. But that was when I entered my first pageant, which was Miss Northern Ireland.
So
And
what had you seen that had that sparked the pageant interest? Because it's not kind of like before I met Saf, I didn't really it wasn't on my radar. It's like, nothing was being picked out just randomly from it. Obviously I knew the Miss USA and that kind of thing. And maybe for another time I'll explain a story about the like Miss USA contest. That's it for another time, probably in a bar if you can pin me into one. Um but what was it? What was the catalyst that made me look at pageants and thought, "Do you know what? I want to go do that."
I think it was, I think I used to watch it on the TV. So I think it used to be shown either whether it was Miss Universe or Miss World. I'm not sure. I literally remember sitting, it must have been really late, like 11 o'clock at night. I was probably about 11 or 12 and watching Miss World and Miss Universe on TV and thinking, oh my gosh, that looks so glamorous. I've always been a really girly girl. I've always loved getting dressed up, makeup. I've always loved Barbie. So anything that's girly, like count me in. I think that was really on the surface of this what attracted it to me. I just like loved all the glitz and glamour. And I thought it looked really fun. But I had no idea how you would even get involved. And then in Northern Ireland, the Miss Northern Ireland competition is quite a big thing. With Northern Ireland being such a small country, um, that competition really kind of takes over on the month that it's on. So it's always in the newspapers, and you'll always see it mentioned on like the radio stations. And particularly whenever I was sort of 16, 17, I always remember when it was coming up to the Miss Northern Ireland, you would see who's won, and she'd be on the TV, and it was all very exciting. So I entered my local heat, and it was done on a heat system, and it still is done in a heat system, similar to how Miss Great Britain is now. So you had to enter your heat to get to the final. So I never made it to the final. I got through the first round of my heat and then got to the final of Miss Lisburn, which is the city that I'm from, and never got any further than that. And then I entered one of the other heats, a bit like you can with Miss Great Britain. You can enter as many heats as you want. I then did another heat, um, which was Miss Banbridge. Didn't get through then. But it didn't put me off. So I never even made it to the final. I
And was
just
this in the same year? You went to different heats in the
yeah, I
same
think
year,
it's
yeah?
in the same year. Yeah. So if you didn't get through, you could still enter another heat to get to the final. So I entered a few, never got to the final. Fine. Went off to uni and then did Miss Manchester at uni, never placed top 10. Fine. It honestly never put me off. I just
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it didn't put you off? Or what was it that had you entered it wanting to like quote unquote compete, or did you enter it to take part and for the experience?
I honestly think that I thought that I'd probably do really well. I think I was very naive and thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do really well. And even so, it wasn't even as if I'm doing it just for the fun. I actually did think I was going to do well. And I was always like sad and would cry after when I hadn't got through, or I didn't get placed in the top 10 or anything like that. I was upset. But it wasn't enough to put me off.
Yeah.
I'm looking back on it now. I wasn't ready. I was just so far from. I can really admire the girls that did go on to win at such young ages. For me, that I feel like my confidence really came in my late 20s, really more when I turned 30. And before that, I had loads of insecurities about myself, and I don't think I would have been ready for such a big title, and it probably would have been too much for me at that time. Um, so I think like timing is everything. But like I say, it didn't put me off. Um, and my fascination with pageants just continued, and then I entered Miss Student, which I think I told you about before when we were out in London for the New Year's Day parade. I did
Yeah.
Miss Student, and you won £10,000.
Yeah.
She was amazing. And I came second, which meant I won £5,000.
Wicked.
And I remember they announced me as second, and I was screaming with like excitement. I was over the moon. And then apparently everybody in the room, it was dead awkward. I didn't even realize this because apparently everybody thought, oh God, she thinks she's won. And so, but
You were like, yeah, 5 grand.
yeah,
Oh, brilliant.
she was the winner. So yeah, so again, didn't win. And then it kind of all stopped. I think I just stopped competing. I finished university and then I went on to join a model agency, and I did various sort of promotional jobs that I think really shaped like the person I am now. So I would one day I would be on a really glamorous modeling job, getting paid, I don't know, £500 to, you know, be photographed on a sofa or something for some sofa company. And then the next day I would be there in the freezing cold at a train station handing out leaflets about some sort of new chocolate bar. So it was like really one extreme to the other, but that was self-employed life and I was there for it. And it really did sort of those years, my early 20s, really kind of I think sort of formed me into who I am now, and also helped me learn how to graft and how to hustle and how to have really good people skills. And so I really look back fondly in that time. And then of course I got an audition or a casting for the role as Barbie for Mattel. And that really was honestly like the best job for me ever. So when I got that, I just couldn't believe it.
And so was that the sort of game changer then when so you'd obviously been incredibly resilient because there's not a lot of people that necessarily compete and don't sort of like move forward. So do you think it was the fact that you came second in the Miss Student that sort of reinvigorated that I'm getting closer that then sort of pushed you on to actually then start looking at other things? Or was it just you always wanted to do the modeling and then it sort of went from there?
I always wanted to, I always like I say, from being really small, I always loved like the glamorous world, and I loved being around females, and I loved being around girls. And I don't think it was coming second in that sort of gave me confidence. Not at all, because then I went on to do another pageant after that, and again didn't even place. So it wasn't really I wouldn't say that it was the pageants that necessarily gave me the confidence. I just had a love for pageants no matter what. And even though I'd cry when I didn't place or didn't win, it never was enough to put me off. It was never going to put me off. But I do think that my confidence as a person definitely grew with age and with experience and with meeting different people and just growing up really. And for me, I think that's where my confidence has grown. And now at 36, I feel like I feel like now people need to watch out, because if somebody annoys me, I say it.
Yeah.
I just say it. I've got no filter now. I'm just like, look, this is what
Usually that comes at around like 70, 80, where you've really like just pulled it forward and kind of, but you know, it's interesting you say that about like just the, like you touched on like the development of, I suppose, pardon me for paraphrasing, but how you got so much better sort of towards your 30s and what have you. And this was what was so important, particularly to Saffron actually, when we took over Miss Great Britain, is that there was such a fantastic pool of females coming through that was in that kind of age out category, in that you know they got to 28 and then they were kind of in the miss but they weren't ready for that, but and
Mhm.
there was still so much like to give for the miss category, sorry, that we just had to move that out to the 30s. And it's quite interesting that you say that it was at that point that you really felt that you started to peak. So at that point now we're talking Barbie. So this is really, really relevant because of obviously, you know, this is kind of like your time all over again. So maybe they should have you back to go and do the touring again.
T-shirt that said, "I used to be an official Barbie." Like honestly, I can't scream it from the rooftops enough. I'm so proud of that job and that period of my life. So when I went for the casting, there was a few rounds of the casting. I think one was sort of just on photos to begin with, and then there was you got invited into their head office, which it was down south somewhere, the actual Mattel head office. And anyway, they rang me up and said, "Oh, we'd like to say you've got the job." And it was so fun because it meant for sort of 4 to 5 years, I was traveling up and down the UK most weekends, appearing as Barbie from like in Scotland. Then next weekend was down to London. It was a really well paid job. And of course, just such a nice job because everybody was so lovely to you because you were Barbie.
Well, no one's going to be nasty to Barbie, are they? I mean, let's be honest.
Nobody's gonna be mean. So I just felt so like lucky, and as a massive Barbie fan myself, I mean, I have hundreds of Barbies. People who come to my photo studio in Leeds, I've never thrown any of my Barbies out. So I have them actually all at my studio. My husband thinks it's really creepy, but it does sound creepy actually saying it out loud. They're in the toilets.
That's even creepier.
It's creepy. I've got shelves in the bathroom at the studio, and they're all lined up, just like watching you on the loo. But anyway,
Brilliant.
um,
Are these
they're all
boxed? Are these boxed or are these
they're all
down?
in the box, and they're all dishevelled, and they've all been played with for years and years. So for me, it really was such my dream job. And I got to do so much exciting things. From I think my first actual job was to, at the time, the biggest girl band was the Saturdays. So they had a Saturdays and Barbie concert, and it was a competition on the back of a Barbie box that you could win this to come to a concert with Barbie in the Saturdays, and it was on Kensington Roof Gardens. There's pink flamingos everywhere, and
Wow.
then me in the Saturdays getting our hair and makeup done, and I just felt like I was like living a dream, like being like the extra member of the Saturdays.
The Sunday.
Yeah, it was a Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
And they were so excited to meet me. They were like, "We can't believe it's Barbie." And I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's Saturday." And then the next job after that was movie premieres, because at the time Barbie would bring out loads of movies for kids. And um, so I did they'd invite celebrities to come and watch the film. So the celebrities would come and meet me. And so I got to meet some of the Spice Girls and their children, like loads of different celebrities.
Who was your
Vanessa.
favourite?
Oh, definitely Mel C, because she cried when she met me.
She
So
cried when she met you.
she cried because her little girl loved Barbie. So she started crying, and she was like, "I'm sorry, I'm so embarrassed, but my little girl loves Barbie so much." And then I was like thinking, "Oh my God, I know every Spice Girl dance routine. I'm that era." But I was just smiling, thinking, screaming inside. And then I never forget a funny story. So we were at Piccadilly Gardens. Well, I think it's Piccadilly Gardens, wherever the sort of the big cinema screen is, where all the premieres are in London. So they had a pink carpet. You would go in, you'd come up and meet Barbie, and then you could go into the movie. And I was desperate for the loo, and it was like a bit of a quiet period. There was nobody there. So I said to whoever it was next to me, I said, "Oh, I'm just going to nip to the loo. I'll be 2 ticks." But I had a massive dress on, so it wasn't super quick to go to the loo, as you can imagine. So I've gone in to this little dressing room, and it had a star on the door, and it said Barbie's room or something like this. And the next thing, the door just like flies open, and I could hear this voice going, "Where is she? Where is she? Where is Barbie? Where is Barbie?" And I was like, "Oh my God," like on the toilet, oh my God, getting up, like in a panic, like running out. And it was Vanessa Feltz, is she like a TV presenter?
Yeah, yeah,
Really.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And she was like, "Where have you been?" Like really angry. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just went to the toilet." And she was like, "Oh, we're waiting out here for you." And I swear, Matt, I honestly hadn't been literally more than like 2, 3 minutes, but she wasn't waiting for anybody. And it was just really funny. And I just always remember that, thinking like the time that I was dressed up as Barbie and Vanessa Belt
And
shouting.
got shouted at in the corner in the toilet. Brilliant. She doesn't do that. You should ring up. You know when she's doing it on the agony aunt thing on this morning?
Yeah.
You should ring up and say, "I'm still traumatized." "Oh, why are you still traumatized?" "Well, I got shouted."
And I got to do like presenting with Kate Garraway, who's obviously on Good Morning Britain. Various times it would be me and her that would introduce the movie. So it was such a glamorous job, honestly. It was so good.
And how
I
long were
was
you with them?
furious. Oh, how long did I do it? Sorry.
Hmm. Yeah, how long were you with them?
5 years. So when I got pregnant, then I had to.
They haven't done that Barbie yet, have they? I
Well,
don't-
there's a funny scene in the film, where in the new film that's out, and they go, "This is Barbie's pregnant friend, but she got discontinued." And I was thinking, that was it.
Wicked. That sounds great. I mean, were you one of one, or was there one and there was multiples of you doing different things, or were you just the?
It's just me, yeah. So at the time it was just me, but then when I left, I had a really good relationship with the team at Mattel, and we got on like an absolute house on fire, and they loved like me doing the job for them. So we worked quite closely together with my dates and their dates, and we would kind of work together. When I left, it did change, and they split the role into a North and a South Barbie. Um, so it did change a little bit, and now I don't even know if they have it anymore. But when I posted a reel on my Instagram, and then the girl that had hired me at Mattel commented, going, "Oh, I'll never forget the day we cast you as Barbie. You were the best person for the job." And I just thought that was dead sweet. But I was annoyed because I thought, why did you get invited to this premiere?
Awesome. I mean, I can only imagine what. I mean, was what period was this? What was it? 2000? What period was it?
So I was 24, and I'm 36 now, so it's 12 years ago.
Right. Okay. No, I was just getting down there with. Is there a load of social media footage knocking around somewhere that there was?
Do you know what? There's not loads. So I have little odd photos from my phone, but I don't even think I had an Instagram at the time. It was kind of before all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
There's something quite nice about that though as well, in that it's kind of it. Even though you may want it kind of documented, it's just kind of also not. There's something quite nice
yeah,
about that as well, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
So
The end of that.
so what then brought you back to pageants then after that?
So then my friend started the Miss Galaxy system in the UK, and she asked me to present her shows, and we met each other because she competed in Miss Student the year before me, and that's how we met. And then so I did the comparing presenting for her shows, and then that was it. Then she just asked me to do all of them, and I obviously loved it because I love pageants. I've always loved pageants. And it was just a girly weekend. Like, I absolutely loved it. And then she started Miss Teen Great Britain. So I was doing all her teen stuff. And I just loved the pageant bubble. And it really started to kick off then, pageants in the UK, because they kind of started to dwindle. And I do feel like Holly kind of brought back this new era of change where you could be married, you could have children, and it really opened the doors to so many new pageant girls coming in. And it was really exciting to be a part of all that. So when I got married, for me now, there wasn't anything for me to compete in because I was over the age of 23. So going back a little bit, when I was 23, I did Miss Northern Ireland again, competed in the heat, but this time I actually made it to the final. Placed top 7, which I was over the moon with, but I really wanted to go to Miss World, and I didn't win. So I was sad, but again, it didn't put me off. And then now that was kind of like, for me, pageants were finished. There wasn't anything for anybody over the age of 24. You couldn't go to Miss World if you were over 24. I think Miss Universe was the similar age. And that was it. And then I got married at 26, and there was nothing that you could do when you were married. So I then competed in Mrs. Galaxy and went to America and came first runner up, which I loved. And I just again had the best week ever competing in that. So then finally, thank the Lord, and when Miss GB sort of changed around and they brought out the new titles of Miss GB and the classic division, I was like, sign me up. I was over the moon.
Great. And did you? What was your? Was that your second year competing on the year that you won, or was that your?
With GB.
Yeah.
No, it was the first.
Wow. So you just came in out of nowhere. So all of those run ups and smash Miss Great Britain on your technically your first go.
Yeah, I mean, that was what was amazing, and I absolutely as soon as I sent the application off, I was like, "This is my home." I just thought, even if I don't win this year, and you hear so many girls say it, I'm gonna compete again. I'm just gonna keep competing until I win. I wanted to be part of it, I wanted to be part of the family, and I just loved everything about it. And then again, similarly, it was just modern. It stood like everything that stood for, I agreed with. And it was just the right system for me. And that's why I always say to people, there is a system out there for everybody. And it's just finding the right one for you and finding your home.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the reason I was explaining actually before we sort of came on camera slash audio. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this project is because, as I explained to you, is that I'm playing catch up with Saffron really, because obviously, you know, when we took over the national directors, she obviously was incredibly knowledgeable about all things pageant and what have you, and I kind of felt like, you know, I knew the business side of stuff, I knew all that kind of stuff, but like there was a knowledge gap that I wanted to try to bridge as quickly as possible, but I needed to bridge it in a way that I found useful and to be able to learn. So really putting this podcast out is really a way for me to speak to like really interesting people that I find fascinating, but also to educate me about the whole pageant world and how
Yeah.
things work and all that kind of stuff. I'm a quick learner, so it's definitely going in, that's for sure. But what do you think? What do you think people don't know about pageants, like the wider community, that they should?
I think what they probably don't know is that, it's it's moved on, thank God, so far from what it used to be about. So when I was 10, 11, watching Miss World and Miss Universe, I actually probably now looking back do not agree with what it stood for back then. I loved, like, on the surface of it, the glamorous girls. I loved that. But actually, I can probably guarantee that it was a full male judging panel. The women were literally being treated like, just on their physique and beauty alone. And it has moved on so much from that. I mean, it used to be that you couldn't compete if you'd had children. And that's such a hot topic in pageants and still is a little bit because I've seen girls comment saying, "Yeah, I don't think you should be allowed to compete in Miss Universe if you've had children." They have changed the rules, by the way. I think it's in the last couple of years, but they said, "Yeah, I don't believe people should compete if they've got children because it's a busy job and it's not fair on the child." And it just really bugged me because I don't believe that's what it is at all. I believe that it's because men view women as more beautiful if they've not had children because they're more virginal or however they want to perceive the most perfect woman. And thank God it has changed now. And it's women that are, in charge of these pageants. It's women that are the directors, like Saffron, and is a great example. In fact, every main pageant in the UK, I think, is the director, is predominantly female. So it just shows that we're in charge. It's not men who are deciding who's beautiful and who deserves to win. It's the women that are organizing it, and it's so much more than what you look like. Literally, that is the smallest amount. It's your interview, it's your on stage question, it's how you interact with people, and it's how you're going to represent the system. And that's the biggest change, and that's what I wish that more people could see and realize. But I honestly think unless you compete or you're very close to somebody that competes, you will not understand that. And I can see why. I can see why there's so many women out there who still believe that it's the way it used to be, and but it's changed so much.
Is the kid thing, do you think, to do with, or with women having children? Do you think that that's also to do with that if you go and win, a significant international, you're going to be touring a lot and you're going to be doing all that kind of stuff? So yeah,
Yeah.
I totally understand the objectifying women of the past. The kind of the old way that pageants were
Yeah.
and put across. But do you think now that they're keeping that because of the fact that maybe
I think they were using that as a bit of an excuse, like, "Oh, you'll be really busy." But my argument is always, okay, so do we think Beyonce is a terrible parent? Because I'm gonna take a wild guess that she's a little bit busier than Miss Universe. The top lawyers of the world, the women who are in really high positions of power are also mothers. It doesn't mean they can't fulfill their job, or they're bad mums, because they're busy. I mean, even in my job, and I'm not in particularly, big position whatsoever, but my job comes with a lot of traveling. I travel a lot. And that's just our situation. I've got a really supportive family. I've got an incredible husband. I've got supported in-laws. So it's about your support system around you as well. So I think it's really unfair and untrue to say that somebody can't have a particular role or job or do a certain thing because they're a mum. And if anything, it spurs you on more. For me, certainly, I'm really driven to be successful because I want to build an incredible life for the boys. So if anything, it makes me work 10 times harder. And then I'm an even better mum when I'm with them because I'm so happy that I've got, an incredible job that I love. And I also get to celebrate that with the kids.
do you think that'll ever change? Do you think they'll ever sort of widen that out to really appreciating? I'm talking like more so the international now, that they would actually appreciate that. It's my belief that women can do it all, because they can. And so do you think that will change, that it becomes like me and Saf talk about when we sort of were trying to think about a strap line for Miss Great Britain. We came up celebrating diversity and women's excellence, and I just thought that was
I
brilliant.
love that. Yeah.
Because they're, let's be honest, there's nothing more excellent than a mom, is there? I mean, when you think about it, um, I don't understand the two can't fit together. So, do you think they will ever move to a point where you either have Miss or Ms or what have you that do have children that can go on and actually take on a role as like a global winner?
Yeah, well, they have. So they've definitely changed it now with Miss Universe. So previously you couldn't have children, and they've definitely changed that rule now. I know for sure on that one. I don't know with Miss World what their rules are, because I know you couldn't be married. I don't know if that's the same for Miss Universe. But I do know that you used to not be able to be married. And again, I just think, oh, let's just I think it's really naive when people think that it's anything other than a man's perception of beauty and, a single objectifying a woman of, I just think it's like almost if you're married, oh, they're written off.
Mm.
That's one thing that I absolutely love about the Miss GB system, and I sing it from the rooftops, is that it's judged on your age category. And that's something that I absolutely love, because as much as I'm proud to be married and proud to be a Mrs., I'm very much an independent woman as well. And I am Charlotte, and my title, my Mrs. title, definitely doesn't define who I am in any shape or form. So for me, I loved competing in a category that was just my age group. It didn't matter if the woman decided we was married or not. We were competing in our age category. And for me, that was better. Um, in other Mrs. competitions, like Mrs. Galaxy, you compete against other married women, and that's fine. And I absolutely do still love Galaxy. Don't get me wrong, but for me, I definitely prefer competing against people within my age. And I love that you can be married at 25 and still compete for that Miss category. I think that's really fair, and I think that's right. And I know that that's something that Misses who are younger married women love about Miss GB, that they can still be a Miss even though they've got married. Um, and for me, I love that I can still be a Ms even though I am married. It's like my marriage life is just set aside for a second, and I'm just celebrating me as a person, not whether I'm married or not.
Yeah, and it just occurred to me actually when I think about I suppose the audience demographic, like you think, or certainly I did, before I actually went to. So my first experience was when I went to Saf handing over her crown. So I can't remember. I think I was maybe 2018, 19, maybe one of the two. And I kind of expected the audience to just be kind of like creepy men and then some of the families, but
Yeah,
realistically it's other pageant girls from other systems or friends or what have you. Like, it's predominantly a female audience, so people who think it's
yeah,
like the objectification of women and prancing around in swimsuits and all this kind of stuff, well, they're actually out there demonstrate. I mean, just I said to Saffron, we were up at the Miss Scholar, no, it wasn't, sorry, it was Miss Cheshire in Liverpool heat.
yeah,
And at one point I turned to Saffron, I says, and I've seen this a number of times, obviously with the finals and what have you last year and what have you, it's just like the confidence that it takes to be able to walk in front of predominantly strangers. Yeah, of course, you've got friends and family and what have you in the room and supporters, but in your swimsuit in front of strangers, it still like baffles me. There's no way I could ever do
yeah,
like myself. And I found it actually amazing when I actually sort of looked around the audience and thought, this is actually like women championing women. It's a pageant for women. Do you know
yeah.
what and
That's what it is, and I
you
think that's
that.
yeah. And that's the misconception, isn't it? And that's what, for me, I worked really hard at the gym on the run up to Miss GB. And I was like so proud of myself for, getting on the swimsuit and getting on stage after having the kids. And everybody was screaming and cheering for me. And I just felt like such a confidence boost. And it is like cheesy, but it is like really empowering. And it's also just fun. And I also think if you don't get it, then that's fine. You just don't get it. Like, for me, it's fun. It's just a fun
And you don't have to get it because it's not about you, it's about you. You know what I mean?
thing.
Exactly. You know, there's
I had a conversation with my hairdresser, and well, she was my hairdresser, but let's just say after her opinion on this, I was like, I don't think I can go back. And she said to me, "Oh, I can't believe how vain these girls are," and it literally was like somebody stabbing me. I was just like, I said, "Vain," and she's like, "Yeah, they really love themselves." And I said, "It's literally the opposite." I said, "I these women do it for millions of different reasons.
yeah,
Probably not one of them is because they love themselves."
no.
Uh, so it's just like that misconception because we like to wear nice dresses and get our hair and makeup done and go on a stage and people cheer us on. Is it weird? Yes, it's weird. I've been a pageant girl since I was 17. I'm not in denial. It is weird. It's so weirdly fun. Um, but I definitely don't love myself. And 99.9% of the girls on that stage don't either. We're just
But,
there
you know,
for the
that's
ride.
also like her response is really just a fear-based response because it's something that somebody doesn't understand. So naturally they will default to the negative. They will default to I assume this person is, or it's highlighting something that, you know, because the yin and the yang of it is probably like she envies the fact that people like yourself can and will go on and, you know, walk in front in your swimsuit in front of 500 people and talk on stage and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, for every opinion, there's always the counter inside that actually is someone like, I wish I was able to do X, Y, or Z.
Interesting you say that because since yeah, you're so right, and I think somebody else had said that to me, and I was like, "Do you know what? That's probably what it is." And I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I want people to love themselves. Like that's the most important thing. Self love is so important. I think there's a difference between like arrogance and that kind of thing, but self love is just people cannot have enough of it, and it's so important. So I think if somebody loves themselves, great. And actually, now that you said that, it's made me think, yeah, I do actually love myself. I love my like the things that aren't perfect because and I think it's pageants that's allowed me to celebrate like every part of me because I'm certainly not perfect. I definitely don't have the best body. I've definitely, there's loads of things that if I could have a magic wand and change, I would. But at the same time, I feel like pageants have allowed me to celebrate all my every single bit of me that even isn't perfect.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, there's nowhere to hide, is there? When you stood up on that on that shaped runway, there's nowhere to hide. And I think something that's massively overlooked is the ability to not only public speak, because you know I've done quite a lot of speaking over the years. It is the number one fear, bar none, worldwide is public speaking, even over death. I think spiders are second, and I think death is third. Uh,
Hilarious.
it is the world's number one fear of public speaking. And you then add on top of that, not knowing what you're going to be asked, you know, when you go to judges' questions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That is such an incredible transferable skill to any part of everyday life, and the confidence that being able to do that, think quickly on your feet, you know, when you see the best of the best, they're able to take the question, take it in the space of a minute or two, whatever that you've
Yeah.
got to answer it, and be able to then put their own spin narrative on what they want to answer but still answer the question. That is such an overlooked and I think under thought of skill. It's phenomenal. It blows me away every time. So that for me, that's my favorite part of any kind of final or pageant is when you go to judges and what have you interview.
The stage questions, that was scary. I'd never ever experienced that in any pageant that I've done before. And I think, I do think pageants have given me that confidence. I wouldn't even have a second thought about going and speaking in front of a room full of people. And it's definitely down to pageants that have given me that confidence. And I think that onstage question is really terrifying because you don't know what it's gonna be. But weirdly at the time, I was as calm as anything. And whenever she came up to me at Dion with the mic, I was just like, I'm ready for this. I mean, what on earth? I mean, I got the most perfect question for me. Like, that was the perfect question for me because it worked so well with everything I talked about in the run up to the final. So the stars were aligned that night for me. I was, because it's completely by random, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. In fact, I remember, you were talking about creating great Britmen.
Yes, yeah, I spoke about my Great Brit Men, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved that onstage question,
For
and
the
that
listeners, though, you have to now explain about the Britmen.
the Brit Men. So raising Great Brit Men, a mum of three boys, despite being Barbie for Mattel, like actually, and being ridiculously girly, always envisaged having daughters. I've got loads of Barbies in the garage, all ready and waiting. Three boys later, none of them interested in Barbies. I was like, "Oh, wasn't my plan." Absolutely adore them, but I just thought this was not what I saw coming. I'm really close to my mum as well. I've got two mums, so I've been brought up in a female household, and then it wasn't until then something happened one day, and I realized that I'm given this opportunity, having had two mums myself, to have these three boys and to raise them as feminists and to, really try and bring up three boys into this world that are going to be fighting the corner for females and stand alongside them as allies. Um, and that was my raising Brit men that I talked about in the run up to the final. So the question that I got was something like, if you could make a change in the world, what would it be? And I said something along the lines of really encouraging parents of sons to really raise their sons as great Brit men, to make this world safer and fair for women and young girls. So anyway, it was brilliant. I loved it. I felt like I was a politician.
Well, the thing is, it obviously landed because it stuck in my head, and I remembered it, and like no word of a lie. There's no notes that remind me of that at all. It's just I remember you saying
Because at the end I said something like this. So together, Great Britain, we can raise the future generation of great Brit men. I felt
crowd
like
goes wild, fade to black.
that's fine. Joking, I was joking.
Yeah, my friends did it to you there and then. Awesome, that's ace. I love the way that you say I've got two mums. So my sister is one of two mums. So and they're doing a great job raising our nephew Noah. But yeah, it just made me smile when you said I never thought of it that way. Having two mums, yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, and I think that's it. So for me, again, it's another element to me that my mum works for a female organisation, Women's Aid, and I've literally been brought up with the most feminist of feminist women you could think of. Um, who are very anti-pageants, and even mum has convinced them now over the years just how much things have changed. So that's what I would say to people, like, if this didn't align with my belief system and my upbringing, especially having two feminist mums, I wouldn't be doing this. This is literally the opposite of what people think. This really is bringing other people, bringing other women up together and raising each other up. It's not tearing each other down.
What um, controversial question? What do you think is perhaps the worst thing about pageants?
Um, what's the worst thing about pageants? I I think I think it's probably the pressure that like we put on ourselves. Maybe people thinking they're not good enough, or I've not done enough appearances, and oh, oh, she's entering, so I can't enter it, and kind of like that, not believing in themselves, or if they don't place or they don't win, taking it personally. And all I'd say to people thinking that is, if you won the crown, you are good enough. You're the best for the job. And it's an interesting one because I have the studio, so I have lots of girls coming in and out, and I hear lots of different opinions and lots of different things. And some people will say, "Well, she only entered 3 weeks before." And I worked a year for this, and that's not fair that she won. And I just hit them back on it, but she was the best, and she was the best one for the job. And I think the worst thing about pageants is that people can forget this is fun, this is a hobby. The moment that it stops being fun is the moment that you need to step back, because it
Isn't that a gambling phrase? Isn't that a gambling? I think you maybe.
just stop, 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 and that's
Yeah,
it.
but it worked. It worked. I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah, that's it for pageants. That could be the tagline: when the fun stops, stops.
Yes.
Um, But I think that's the worst thing about it. People putting too much pressure on themselves or, overthinking it. It's a fun thing. It's a hobby. Do as much as you want, do as much as you can. But when the fun stops, stop.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I mean, there's only so much of that I suppose I can relate to it, but I suppose seeing it is always it's interesting, seeing things from I suppose third party almost, where there's obviously those that are in it being part of it, and then that kind of third party. Yeah, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. There's a lot of pressure when it's taken I suppose now I don't want to take this away from because it's a you win Miss Great Britain or Miss Great Britain or Miss Great Britain Classic. It's a really really prestigious title within the pageantry world, and I don't know I just think but at the end of the day Monday comes. It's not like you ain't walking down to the co-op and people only go, "Hey, Miss GB," like they would if they saw Robbie Williams walking down the street. So I suppose he's kind of keeping it in context, like celebrating the amazing achievement that you've been through, because really, bringing I suppose a prime, excellent, I suppose part of the phrase package to stage when you actually come on and compete. It's a year's job, isn't it? It's a year's worth of
Yeah.
fundraising and getting your walk right and interview practice and the publicity folders and if you can go for side awards all that kind of stuff. It's kind of it's a year's process, so I suppose you can understand why people get really sucked into the series or almost up in their own head about
Yeah.
did you ever find that happened to you or?
Yeah, and I completely like understand it. And I think it's probably again one of those, it's a bit of a split opinion on it. But my opinion is definitely that for me anyway, I've been in this industry now for nearly 20 years and I love it more than I ever have before. And I do believe that's because I've always had the right attitude with it. It's always been, a hobby. And I think I can see the people saying, but you spend thousands on the dresses and your coaching and your training and I definitely am not saying don't take it seriously because I definitely take it seriously. When I thought about GB the year before, but I definitely wasn't ready to do it. So when I committed myself to doing it, that was it. I had to really take it seriously. I spoke to Alex first and said, look, this is going to cost us. This is going to mean you're going to have to help more with the kids. Like there was lots of elements that I had to think about. So it wasn't on a whim that I just entered like, oh, I'm just going to turn up on the day. There was like a lot of work that went in and a lot of money that went in. So it's a hobby, but it's a serious hobby. But I also said at the same time, the minute that I start getting a bit stressy, because I do have a business that I run on my own. Alex left the police. He gone into property. We had lots of other bits in our life going on. We've got the boys. I said, if it starts to get too much, I'm going to just step away because it has to be a fun thing for me. If it's not fun, then why am I spending all this time and money on it? Like it has to be fun. And the whole time it was fun. Like literally every single bit. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is fun. The masterclass, I was like a Cheshire cat. I was like, this is just so fun. It was worth every penny, and worth like all the work that went into it. And like I say, if I hadn't won, I would have just done it again because it was just so fun.
Awesome. I want to finish with some practical stuff for the people to be able to take away, particularly if they're fairly new to pageants and they want to up their game a little bit. So I want you to give me some top tips. Is probably not the best kind of thing. Some advice that if you were coaching you back when you kind of first started to help maybe skip the first sort of 5 years the mistakes that you made and maybe practical things right the way through to I don't know how you practice your walk or how all of that kind of stuff. What maybe five things would you boil it down to be able to move people further forward than they would having not heard this?
I definitely think investing in a coach is the best thing you can do for a pageant. I think for me, that just excelled me. And I think coaches didn't even exist when I used to compete, 20 years ago. There wasn't such a thing as a coach. Obviously, now you've got loads of coaches to choose from in the UK. So again, it's finding the right coach for you. And I definitely think that makes you take it seriously. I think anything like, you know, when you pay for something,
Mm,
you think, well, I've committed myself now. I've
yeah.
got to take it seriously. And it's like, so for me, whenever I'd paid for walk training and interview training, I actually went away and practiced because I thought I've just spent a fortune. I'm gonna have to get my money's worth out of this. So
Yeah.
it really like sharpens your head to sort of get knuckling down and really doing the work.
The
I think
thing
it
is, though,
really
if you pay, you play. That we use that. If you pay, you play. If you get things for free, sits on the worktop and just gets kind of looked over because there's no value exchange. You know,
yeah.
it's just there becomes no value unless there's value exchange.
Exactly. So for me, it would be definitely getting a coach. Um, was this 5 tips for doing a pageant? Am I on the right
Right.
path?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be five, but just something. So there's a couple. So we've got getting a coach or mentor that's ideally been there and done it because there are a lot of people out there that can say I've been done this and call themselves a coach or a mentor, but they actually haven't won anything or they're not placing or whatever. So it's
Yeah,
finding something right.
interesting though on that, Matt. Don't know if it's necessary that you have to have won a pageant to be the best coach. And this is completely off topic, and you can cut this out.
No, no, absolutely. We don't put anything out. So
It's something that I really believe in because randomly, when I had the kids, I followed this sleep routine woman who puts your kids into a sleep routine. I bought the book. It's called Gina Ford, Contented Little Baby. Now, any parent that is listening to this now, they're either going to go, oh my God, I love Charlotte, or they're going to go, I can't believe she's the Hitler of it. It's really strict, right? My midwife said, throw the book out the window. I said, my neighbor did it and her baby sleeps every night. And her, anyway, did the sleep routine, right? I had 3 children in 4 years, less than 4 years. They all slept. They all went to bed at 7. I was able to like excel more in my career. We still got a happy marriage. They still go to bed now at 7 o'clock at night. It's it worked. This woman has never had any children. She's never had any children. And anybody who ever has a thing to say about the woman that wrote this book, they go, how can she have an opinion? She's never had any children. And I'm like, she's good at her job. She's almost like an outsider looking in with
yeah,
no emotion attached, going, this is what you have to do to get your child to sleep. And I'm telling you, I've done it 3 times and it's worked. So interestingly, not like comparing baby sleeping to pageant coaches, but I don't believe that you have to have won a big title because I've won a massive title with Ms. GB. I am not going to be the coach for you. I've not got the right personality, I don't think, for coaching. Great photographer, but I'm not going to be an outstanding coach. Whereas there are some coaches, I can't think of any off the top of my head, who I think have got a lot to give, especially with like interview training, but they've not necessarily won a big title. So I think it is just finding like somebody that you're recommended by and you can maybe see that they've coached people who've gone on to win. That's what I would say.
that
You know,
was the bit that was missing. That was what I was going on to.
yeah.
Or I've won a title, but I saw the Irish and you rare up, so I thought I'll
That's a 36-year-old me that just bites now.
yeah,
No,
yeah. Or have coached someone who's gone on to go and win.
oh, I jumped ahead. Sorry, but
That's all
yeah.
right. That's what it's about. That is what it's about. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to learn.
So yeah, I'd say that. And then as well, I think just do putting as much in as you want to. You know, if you and this came from Saffron. The first thing she said to us when we won the next day was, she went, "This is your year." She went, "You do what you want with your year. This is your year." And I just loved that about Saf because it was kind of like, if you want to put loads of pressure on yourself and go wild, go and do it. And I'm going to be champion you and be right behind you. And if you want a bit more of a chilled one, I'm right behind you and I'm going to champion you. And I think, especially with the GB system, just do as much as you can, but not to the point where you're going to absolutely exhaust yourself, that is going to zap the fun out. Appearances are brilliant. And I think quality over quantity is definitely more important. I think even, a director is going to prefer that you do, 10 amazing appearances that have got meaning behind them than, 50 just dropping in clothes at a charity shop, running up to here, running back down to there just to fill the numbers. Quality over quantity. And then really think about why you're doing that system. So for me, like, the list was endless for GB of what I loved about the system, but it's like, why do I actually want to do this system? Is it just because I want a crown? Because that's fine. And there's other pageants out there if you just want the crown. This one definitely isn't that. I think you need to really believe in the belief system behind Miss GB. But, so finding the right system for you and why you actually want to do it. If you just want to cry, then maybe do a charity pageant or a very small system, um, if you're starting out. But for the bigger ones, you need to have a real meaning of what it means to you to win.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think you see that in the winners. I think that definitely comes across that that title was one that they had set their sights purely on. Like it was almost like and nothing else existed. But that, within the pageant world, is that that's the one I'm having. And that's what felt like it came across for say that like your Cat Henry's, the previous winners and what have you that I've seen come through. It was just you just felt it. It just was very very clear.
Yeah, well, I think if I look at the timeline of when I started nearly 20 years ago to where I am now, there was 17-year-old me, never placed, didn't even sometimes make the final. And then now to have like the biggest national title that you can have for my age category in the UK is amazing. And that's why I always say to people, just don't give up. And if you've got a love for pageants, take a break when you need to, come back to it. Like I've dipped in and out of entering, I've not been entering every year for the last 20 years. um, but it's never give up. And I wouldn't have been ready at 20 to win a big title. This was the right time for me. And I think that's the same for the three queens this year. When you look at our pageant journeys, we've all been involved with pageants for years and years and years. I mean, Nicole's been entering way back in the 80s. Amy's been doing it for, over 10 years. So it's really lovely that three of us have kind of won our biggest titles ever after years of competing and not winning. So it's so nice that the three of us had huge titles all at the same time.
Awesome. We are pretty much at time. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
No, I think we've covered it all. We've talked about Barbie, we've talked about pageants, we've talked about when the fun stops. Stop.
Stop. Look that. Love that. In fact, I might even have that as the tagline for this when we put it on on the spot.
When the person gets boring, stop. When the fun stops, stop. Yeah.
Perfect. Love it. Charlotte, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you for the last hour. What have you got planned for have you got anything planned for the last couple of months of your reign? Because it's not long till you hand over the reins, isn't it?
I know. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited because, now we're obviously getting ready for handover. So we've got lots to plan in terms of our dresses and who's coming to the final and whatnot. So for me, um, I'm finally going to do my podcast. You've inspired me now. I think I've like just kept putting it off and putting it off, thinking I'm going to do it then. I'm going to do
I
that.
best be season one, episode one.
It's going to be yeah,
No, I said I better be season one, episode one.
yeah. I'm going to have you on it. Talk about toxic men.
Oh, don't you'll get me haters.
um, I really, really want to do a 6 episode, no pressure, on raising Grit Brit men. That is, if I don't do that before I hand over, I'm not going to hand over. I'm going to have to like say, so I've got to just delay it. um, and what was the other thing that I wanted to do before handover? Oh yeah, and then in September I'm going to do another event for Alex's Wish. So I became an ambassador of theirs when I won, which was amazing. So I've got an event planned for them in September. So yeah, just nice little things really. And then I'm going to be sad, but at the same time, I feel really happy because Saffron and you are not getting rid of me. I am like in this family now. That's me.
It's nice.
Here I'm going to be helping out. I'm not. I'm maybe not have a crime, but I'm definitely not going to be gone.
Well, do what everyone else does and stick one on anyway. I feel left out because I'm the one without. I mean, so where can people find your incredible photography if they want to come and have their pictures? Where can they find that? What's your website? We will stick it in the notes.
Thank you. It's probably best just to look at Instagram, and it's just at Charlotte Clemie photographer.
One M, yeah,
Pardon.
one M,
Yeah.
yeah.
Clemie. Yeah. Silly English name, you see.
Oh,
Probably the Irish one. Um,
that's a whole new
yeah.
podcast on its own.
But yeah, please give me a little follow. And there's always like pageant-y stuff going on there. And even if you're not booking a shoot with me, it can be quite good inspiration for if you have got shoots planned for outfits and whatnot. So yeah, I'd appreciate the follow.
I've seen your work and it's absolutely wicked. It really is. So if you can get down to Charlotte Studio, see what she's all about. Get onto her Instagram as well and give her a follow. And thanks all for listening. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, whatever else we've got on offer. We're pretty rough and ready, but we'll see where it goes. This was season 1, episode 1 with Charlotte Clemie, the current Ms. Great Britain, absolutely smashing it and raising great Brit men.